In this piece, we're going to create a traditional lower thirds title animation. And so before we do anything, we always want a storyboard. Now, I've chosen to do the storyboard in Adobe Illustrator. You can choose to do it in whatever program you like, or you can hand draw it. The important thing is that you think about what the key movements are that you're going to create, the important pieces that you're going to create. This is going to help you plan your animation. It's going to help you think through what all needs to happen before you're in your animation. And so every project should start off with a storyboard. For those who do choose to use Illustrator, there are ways to bring the pieces straight in from Illustrator, but we're going to create all this straight in After Effects. We're going to have a black bar slide in from the left, followed by a gray bar sliding in from the left, followed by my name, my titles. We'll hold, and then we'll have everything fall to the bottom. Okay, so that's what we're looking at, and that is my storyboard for this particular animation. Okay, so now we're over in After Effects. We're going to create a new project. And we want to go in, first off, before we do anything, go to your workspace up here on the top, workspace. Make sure all panels is checked, and I'm going to go ahead and hit reset all panels. Let's see if I can speak this evening. Okay, and all my panels are reset, and I've got a blank area to work. I'm going to click the New Composition button, and we'll call this Lower Thirds as our composition. We're going to leave it set to HDTV, which is 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. This is on screen, so it's RGB. And I'm going to leave the rest of all this. I know already that I'm not going to need all 8 seconds. I'm going to click this down to 6 seconds. I can always change that if need be. Okay. So there's my blank composition. And if we remember the storyboard, this final piece is going to have, let's make sure that's black. We're going to have a black rectangle. And then click off of it so that we create everything in its own separate layer. If we don't click off, what's going to happen is we're going to end up with multiple shapes in this layer. It can still be animated, but for where we are, it's a lot easier to go ahead and do these as separate. And this one, instead of being black, we'll make it filled. We'll set the brightness to say 60%, a little lighter than medium gray. And I'll just draw that over top of that. I'm going to grab those two right now, and I'm going to go over here on the right hand side and click Align, and I'm going to tell them that I want to go ahead and right align. That way I make sure the right edges are lined up, and I'm just going to use my arrow to pull them off, my left arrow twice to pull them off the edge. So this is this is what I want my two boxes to look at like. We have shape layer 1 and we have shape layer 2. I could go rename them if I want and call this one maybe. Command click, right click, And all the way down at the bottom, rename black box. Do you need to rename them? Probably not on this one, but it does keep things, especially on shape layers, easier to know what you're looking at. So we have our two black boxes. I'm going to just click the text up here. I'm going to work with Helvetica Neue condensed black as the text, and we'll start off the first piece with black text. I know it's called condensed black. That's a style, not a color. G-R-E-G-W-I-L-I-M-S. I am Greg Williams. So that's going to be in there. And I can go ahead over here, and I'm just going to click and drag to the right to increase the text size. I like to work in whole numbers, even numbers. They're easier to work with. So change that to 80. And I'm just going to use my arrow down. And that looks like a good place for my text. Okay. And now let's do the same thing to get our titles. I'm going to click in this. But instead of working with black, I'm going to raise my brightness to 60%. You can grab the scrubber. Since I already knew what I was working with, I just typed in the number. And I am the program director. And let's start that off at half the size. And bring it down here. I'm going to align it right, I think. Kind of reinforce that right-hand side. We'll see how it goes. Program director, text, and graphic arts and design. And yes, I am typing both my title and my program name in lowercase. Lowercase tends to be a little friendlier in feel. We chose a sans serif because it's a font because it's a little easier to read, and we went with something other than a light or regular version of the typeface so that we get a little bit thicker, stronger, easier to read. So I'm just going to grab I'm holding the shift and clicking on each of my three text layers. I'm going back over to my alignment and right align. And so that's what I want it to finish looking like. I always find it easier, especially if I have something moving in, holding, and then moving back out, to design where it's actually moving. And so let's kick this out to around, we can always move the keyframes, and we will do that in a few minutes here, but let's go out to, say, 3 minutes and 30 seconds to start off with. And you'll notice that when I hit enter, oh, that was nice. Let's try that again. 3 seconds, and 15 frames, because 3 minutes and 30 frames is 4 seconds, so 30 frames per second. Okay, so I'm out here at 3 seconds and 15 frames. I've got my playhead over here. I'm going to select everything, and what I want to do is I want to lock that position in place, and so I'm going to hit P, just the letter P, and it's going to show me the position parameter or property for all of those. And all I have, since they're all highlighted at the moment, I'm going to just have to hit that stopwatch once, and it has created, we'll see the keyframes indicators over there and over here. And so we created all 5 of the keyframes at once, so I don't have to keep doing it again. Now I'm going to come all the way back over to the very beginning. Everything's still highlighted. And I'm going to click and drag, and then I'm going to hold the shift button as I pull to make sure that it keeps everything lined up so we don't end up with some weird slant that we didn't anticipate. So we've got a nice straight line. If we were to play it, we would see a very slow movement of everything coming in. Well, okay, we've got those things in place. They're just not coming in like we'd like them to. But I do have some keyframes in place. So I'm going to first off go ahead and move forward about half a second, 15 frames. Make sure everything is still selected, and add a keyframe by hitting this little diamond button. And drag that back off the edge. All I was doing is making sure that we kind of leave it blank. Sometimes you'll notice we jump in, things start happening before a full second has even taken place, and it just jerks us into what's going on. So by moving in about half a second, it's going to feel a little more natural, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to let it take half a second, 15 frames, for each piece to move in. So I'm at 15 frames. I can go to 30 frames, which is 1 second. And I'm going to grab this very bottom one, my black, actually I want to grab my gray box because I want my gray box in first, and I'm going to move the timeline on that. And if I hold the shift, it'll click, and so that brings in my gray box. Okay. My black box, I actually want it to still be at that 0 position until the gray box is all the way in. And then adding another 15 frames. Now I'm at 1 second, 15 frames. And I'm going to go grab my last keyframe for that black box, hold the shift so it snaps. And so we have the gray box come in, then the black box come in. Once that black box is in, I then want to start bringing in the names. So I will grab the keyframe on my name, slide it over, go forward another 15 frames, which takes us to 2 seconds. Okay, and that brings my name in. My title, Program Director. I want to come in next and add 15 frames. And grab the one on the right, hold the shift, and it clicks in. And then I'm going to come grab that last one and have it come in right there. And this is going to go to 3 seconds. And snap it. So let's see what we have. Okay, brings everything in. It feels a little, what's happening is we've got a linear interpolation, so the speed is very uniform, which we remember from our principles of animation isn't necessarily what we want. So I'm going to drag a big box around all my keyframes, and I'm going to stop my playback for a second. Right click, or Command click on a Mac, and I'm going to ease in. What that's going to do, it's going to start off faster and slow right as it comes in. And so that's going to feel a little bit smoother for us. I could even, again, making sure all those layers are connected, add motion blur to each of those, and now that feels a little bit better, I think, as we see it come in and on a blur, easing in, snapping into place. Okay, now that we have that there, if we remember our timeline, we said it's going to hold and then it's going to disappear. Now I could make it disappear lots of different ways, but if we look at my storyboard, what I have it doing is all falling down. We're at 3 seconds, 3 seconds now, so we want to hold it. How long do we hold it? There's actually science behind this. Instead of, oh, that feels about right. What we want to do is have it up there long enough for people to read it, comprehend it, and then get it on out of the way. The average American reads about 300 words per minute on a printed page. That gets cut in half when we put it on screen, which means 60 seconds we get somewhere between 150 to 180 words read, which means about 3 words per second. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So somewhere around 1.5 to 2 seconds should be good. I'm at, that last keyframe is at 3, so I'm going to give it from 300 to 415. Well, that's nice. Let's try that again. 415. Didn't need it to go all the way out there to 14 minutes. I must have hit a button. Okay, so before we start moving this off the screen, what we want to do, again, make sure everything's selected, our position's there, and click the little diamond. What that's going to do, it's going to hold it in place. If we were not to do that, hold it in place, it would start, as soon as it came in, it would start moving towards its off position, and that's not what we want it to do. We want it to get there. Well, isn't that nice? Did I move it? And hold. Okay. So it's there and held, and now I need everything off the screen. And so the easiest thing for me to do is just to grab it all and move it down. And again, we've kind of been timing this out at roughly 15 seconds. So we're at 4:15. We're going to take it to 5:00, 5 seconds. Make sure everything's selected. Our position is showing, and pull it straight down off the page. Hold that shift key to keep it straight. And let's see how we're doing. Okay, cool. And that's a basic lower thirds. Now we need to go ahead and export it. By the way, there is some little tweaking to go on. It's based on the curvature is why it's continuing to move instead of snapping in. But if we get this much done, we've got a basic title sequence, and then we can worry about what goes on next. So I'm going to save this first, and then, come on, save button. Okay, I'm going to save it on my desktop. We're going to call this Lower Thirds version 2. Save. That way if something messes up, I can come back to where we were. And now this is important, we want to go in and we want to export this. I'm going to add it to the render queue. We need to turn all these individual pieces that are moving into actual frames that are generated into a movie, and that's what we're doing with rendering. I'm going to leave it set to my best settings. That's fine. And lossless compression. That's fine. I want it to output to Lower Thirds version 2 .move. And I'm going to leave it in QuickTime file format. If you're on a PC, you may get AVI. That will work if you don't have QuickTime as an option there. And save, and then make sure that we hit the render button. And we can see the individual frames rendering out. Okay. And now we can upload that, and we have our movie. I hope that helped.